Chapter 1. A Perfect Life. Sarah and Mark Adams lived what many considered to be the quintessential suburban dream. Their lives, painted in the calm hues of routine and stability, seemed to shine with a soft, golden light that few could ignore. They had been married for a decade, and in that time, their relationship had become the benchmark for those around them. Their home was a spacious, well-maintained house in a quiet suburban neighborhood. The manicured lawn and well-tended garden were a testament to their dedication and pride. Inside, the decor reflected Sarah's artistic sensibilities, elegant and eclectic, with her own paintings adorning the walls. The living room was a cozy blend of modern comfort and artistic flair, featuring plush sofas, hardwood floors, and a tasteful assortment of art pieces that showcased Sarah's talent. Sarah herself was a woman of serene beauty and quiet strength. She had a presence that was both gentle and commanding. Her auburn hair, often pulled back in a loose bun, framed a face marked by expressive green eyes and a warm, inviting smile. She was known for her kindness and empathy, always extending a helping hand to friends and strangers alike. Her gallery, a small but charming space in the heart of the city, was a reflection of her artistic soul. It featured local artists as well as her own work, and it was a place where creativity and community came together. Sarah's ability to manage the gallery, while still being a supportive wife, made her a pillar of strength in their shared life. Mark was Sarah's perfect counterbalance. With his dark hair neatly combed and his blue eyes sparkling with ambition, he was a charismatic figure in both his personal and professional life. His smile had a way of making people feel at ease, and his easygoing nature masked a sharp intellect and a drive for success. He worked as an accountant at a prestigious firm where his meticulous work and leadership skills were highly regarded. His colleagues admired him, not only for his professional acumen, but also for his genuine and approachable demeanor. Their relationship was characterized by mutual respect and unwavering support. Mark admired Sarah's dedication to her art and her ability to connect with people on a deeper level, while Sarah valued Mark's ambition and his capacity to be a rock in the whirlwind of life. They complemented each other perfectly. Sarah's calm and nurturing nature balanced Mark's dynamic and driven personality. Their weekends were often filled with simple joys, leisurely breakfasts at their favorite cafe, visits to farmers' markets, or quiet evenings spent at home. They enjoyed the company of friends and family, hosting gatherings that showcased Sarah's culinary skills and Mark's talent for storytelling. Their friends frequently praised their relationship, often citing it as a model of harmony and mutual respect. The Adams bond seemed almost unbreakable, a testament to their shared values and deep affection. Yet beneath the surface of their seemingly perfect life, there were subtle undercurrents that only those closest to them could sense. The routine that marked their days was comforting, but also, in its predictability, left space for the unexpected, a reality that would soon challenge the very foundation of their seemingly flawless existence. Chapter 2. The New Co-worker. Mark's feelings for Emily grew stronger with each passing day. He found himself looking forward to their time together, both in and out of the office. They shared a deep connection, one that went beyond mere attraction. Emily's presence brought a sense of vitality and excitement to Mark's life that he hadn't felt in years. However, this newfound passion came with its own set of complications. Mark was married, and his wife Sarah began to notice the changes in him. He was staying late at work more often, coming home with a faraway look in his eyes. The guilt started to weigh on him. but the pull towards Emily was too strong to resist. One evening, after a particularly productive day at the office, Mark and Emily decided to celebrate with a drink at a nearby bar. The atmosphere was lively, and the conversation flowed easily between them. As the night went on, they found themselves sharing more personal stories, laughing, and enjoying each other's company. The boundaries between professional and personal continued to blur. As they walked out of the bar, the cool night air hit them. Emily turned to Mark with a mischievous smile. "How about a walk?" she suggested. Mark hesitated for a moment, thinking about Sarah at home, but the allure of Emily's company was too tempting. He nodded, and they set off down the dimly lit street. They wandered through the city, talking and laughing, until they reached a quiet park. They sat down on a bench, and the conversation took a more serious turn. Emily opened up about her dreams and fears, and Mark found himself doing the same. It felt liberating to share his thoughts with someone who understood him so well. As the night grew darker, their proximity on the bench grew closer. Mark could feel the warmth of Emily's body next to his, and the tension between them was palpable. Finally, unable to resist any longer, Mark leaned in and kissed her. It was a moment of pure passion, one that neither of them would forget. But as they pulled away, the reality of the situation hit Mark. He was a married man, and this was a line he had never crossed before. The weight of his actions settled heavily on his shoulders. Emily, sensing his turmoil, placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "Mark, I know this is complicated," she said softly, "but we have something special here. Let's not ruin it by overthinking." Mark nodded, but the guilt remained. He knew he had to make a choice, and soon. The excitement of his relationship with Emily was undeniable, but so were the consequences. As they walked back to the office to retrieve their cars, Mark's mind raced with thoughts of what to do next. The night had changed everything, and there was no going back. Chapter 3. Whispers and Suspicions. Sarah Adams was enveloped in the tranquility of her seemingly perfect life, blissfully unaware of the undercurrents that threatened to unravel it. Her days followed a comforting rhythm, and she had always believed in the stability of her marriage to Mark. They had weathered many seasons together, and her trust in him was unwavering. However, this sense of security began to falter as the whispers of discontent grew louder. It started subtly. Sarah noticed that Mark was spending more time at the office. His late nights, once rare and innocuous, became a frequent occurrence. At first, she attributed these changes to the demands of his job or the high-profile project he was involved in. Mark's position at the firm had become increasingly demanding, and she reassured herself that this was simply a phase they needed to get through. But then came the evening at their friend's dinner party, a seemingly ordinary social gathering that would turn out to be anything but. As they sipped wine and exchanged light-hearted banter, one of their mutual friends, a well-meaning but indiscreet woman named Julia, casually remarked, "Have you noticed how close Mark and Emily have become? I hear they're practically inseparable at work." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. She had heard of Emily, Mark's new colleague, who had joined the firm recently, but she had never paid much attention to her. Julia's comment, though casual, struck a dissonant chord. Sarah forced a smile and responded with a laugh, trying to brush off the remark. "Oh, it's just office camaraderie. You know how these things go." Yet, the seed of doubt had been sown. Sarah couldn't shake off the unsettling feeling that settled in her chest. As the evening wore on and the conversation shifted, she found herself distracted, replaying Julia's words in her mind. The warmth of the dinner party faded into the background as she pondered the possibility that her seemingly perfect life was not as secure as she had believed. In the following days, Sarah's observations grew more focused and acute. She began to scrutinize Mark's behavior with a new intensity. Late nights became routine, and Mark's once eager phone conversations turned into hushed, cryptic exchanges. He was often evasive about his whereabouts or the details of his conversations. The familiar comfort of his presence was replaced by a cold distance that made Sarah's heart ache. The changes were subtle but noticeable. Mark's demeanor had shifted. He seemed distracted, his laughter more forced, and his responses to her questions curt. He would come home late, claiming to have been caught up with work or unexpected meetings. Sarah tried to remind herself of the pressures of his job, but the increasing frequency of these absences, combined with his growing secretiveness, made it harder to ignore the gnawing feeling in her gut. Sarah found herself torn between confronting Mark and keeping her suspicions to herself. Her internal conflict was compounded by the fear of what she might uncover and the potential disruption to their seemingly perfect life. Each night, as she lay in bed beside Mark, she watched him drift off to sleep, his back turned to her, and wondered about the truth that might be hiding behind the veil of his professional commitments. The ache of uncertainty gnawed at her. She began to observe small, seemingly inconsequential details: Mark's choice of attire, the faint scent of unfamiliar perfume on his clothes, and the way he now seemed to avoid making eye contact. These were all small pieces of a puzzle she was desperate to solve. Sarah's once secure and comforting world was now shrouded in a fog of suspicion and fear. The trust she had placed in Mark was beginning to fracture under the weight of her growing doubts. The whispers and hints that had initially seemed like inconsequential chatter now loomed large, casting a long shadow over their relationship. As she grappled with the possibility of infidelity, her heart ached with the uncertainty of whether her beloved husband might indeed be unfaithful. Chapter 4. The Investigation. The weight of her suspicions grew unbearable for Sarah. The once comforting routines of her life now felt tainted by doubt and uncertainty. The faint murmurings of discontent that had first surfaced at the dinner party had evolved into a gnawing compulsion for the truth. Sarah knew she could no longer ignore the creeping sense of betrayal that had invaded her life. Determined to uncover the truth, Sarah embarked on a meticulous and discreet investigation. She knew she had to be cautious. Her instincts told her that confronting Mark without concrete evidence could jeopardize her ability to understand the full scope of his betrayal. The first step in her investigation was to gather information from those around her, hoping to piece together the puzzle without raising suspicion. Her approach was careful and calculated. Sarah began by casually engaging in conversations with mutual friends and acquaintances, subtly steering the topics towards Mark and Emily. She would ask general questions about the office dynamics, as if she were merely curious about workplace gossip. Her questions were always framed in a way that seemed innocent, yet they were designed to elicit revealing information. At first, the responses she received were vague and non-committal. People offered polite but guarded answers, which did little to assuage her growing concerns. However, Sarah's persistence began to pay off. Through a series of seemingly innocuous conversations, she began to piece together a pattern. One of Sarah's old college friends, Lisa, who worked in a different department at the same firm, mentioned in passing, "I heard that Mark and Emily have been working closely together on some project. They're often seen leaving the office together late at night. It seems like they're quite the team." Lisa's comment, though casual, was a crucial piece of the puzzle. Sarah took note of the detail about Mark and Emily's late-night meetings. She followed up with another friend, Tom, who had been at a recent work function where he'd seen Mark and Emily together. Tom recalled, "They seemed really close. There was this one moment when they were talking in a corner, and Mark was very attentive. It looked like more than just professional interaction." With each new piece of information, Sarah's dread grew. The confirmations from different sources painted a troubling picture of Mark's relationship with Emily. The narrative of their closeness and the frequency of their interactions was consistent with the changes Sarah had observed in Mark's behavior. Sarah also began to notice subtle but telling signs in her daily life. She had inadvertently stumbled upon a series of text messages between Mark and Emily on his phone, left unattended one evening when he was in the shower. Though she had initially hesitated to read them, the urgency of her need for answers overcame her. The messages were affectionate, filled with terms of endearment and plans for private meetings. The realization that these were not just friendly exchanges, but intimate and personal conversations was a gut-wrenching blow. Despite the mounting evidence, Sarah chose not to confront Mark immediately. The raw pain of betrayal was overwhelming, and she felt the need to understand the full extent of his affair before taking any drastic steps. She meticulously documented every detail, from the nature of their interactions to the timing of their meetings, compiling a detailed account of the affair. In the days that followed, Sarah's investigation became a consuming preoccupation. She began to distance herself from Mark, observing him with a detachment that allowed her to maintain her composure while gathering information. She used her observations and the information she had collected to piece together a clearer picture of Mark and Emily's relationship. The emotional toll of the investigation was immense. Sarah felt like a stranger in her own home, her interactions with Mark becoming increasingly strained and distant. The vibrant, loving life they had built together now seemed like a distant memory, replaced by a cold reality of deceit and betrayal. In her solitude, Sarah wrestled with a storm of emotions: grief, anger, and a profound sense of loss. Yet, amidst the chaos, she remained focused on her goal: to understand the full extent of Mark's betrayal before making any decisions about the future of their marriage. Her world had been shattered, but her resolve to uncover the truth remained unwavering. Chapter 5. The revelation. The evening air was crisp and filled with a quiet tension as Sarah Adams prepared to confront the harsh reality of her situation. Her investigation had led her to a turning point, a pivotal moment when she would see the truth unfold before her eyes. Armed with a sense of grim determination, Sarah decided to follow Mark to a restaurant where he had claimed to be meeting a client. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Sarah discreetly trailed Mark from a distance, her heart pounding with a mix of dread and anticipation. She chose a spot across the street from the restaurant, positioned in a dimly lit area that allowed her to observe without being seen. The restaurant, a quaint and elegant bistro known for its intimate ambiance, seemed like a world apart from the life she had once known. Through the large windows adorned with softly glowing candles and white linen tablecloths, Sarah watched as Mark and Emily entered the restaurant together. They were greeted warmly by the host and led to a secluded corner table, far enough from the bustling main area to provide them with privacy. The sight of them sitting close together, their heads inclined in shared conversation, made Sarah's stomach churn with unease. As she observed from her vantage point, Sarah saw Mark and Emily engage in what appeared to be an affectionate and deeply personal interaction. They laughed frequently, their voices mingling with the soft background music. Mark's laughter was genuine, his eyes crinkling at the corners as he looked at Emily with a fondness that stung with the realization of betrayal. Emily, for her part, leaned in closer, her hand occasionally brushing against Mark's, a gesture of intimacy that spoke volumes. The intimate nature of their dinner was undeniable. They shared a bottle of wine, toasting to private jokes and moments that seemed to hold special meaning for just the two of them. At one point, Emily reached out to adjust a strand of Mark's hair that had fallen out of place, a tender gesture that was both affectionate and revealing. Mark's response was one of complete openness. He didn't just accept the touch, he reveled in it, his body language conveying a sense of belonging and connection that was profoundly intimate. Sarah's heart shattered with each passing moment. The joy and camaraderie between Mark and Emily, so visible and genuine, were a stark contrast to the cold distance that had come to define her interactions with Mark. The realization that this was more than just an affair, that it was a full-fledged relationship built on trust and affection, was a devastating blow. As the evening drew to a close, Mark and Emily lingered over coffee, their conversation growing softer and more personal. Sarah watched as they eventually stood up, Mark placing a gentle hand on the small of Emily's back as they walked out of the restaurant together. The sight of them leaving arm in arm, their bodies close and their expressions content, was a final, crushing confirmation of the depth of their relationship. When Mark finally returned home, Sarah had already prepared herself for the confrontation. Her demeanor was the picture of calm and composure, her emotions carefully masked behind a veneer of normalcy. She greeted him with a warm smile and engaged in light, casual conversation, masking the turmoil that roiled beneath the surface. Mark, oblivious to Sarah's newfound knowledge, seemed relaxed and content. He spoke about his client meeting, with casual ease, recounting details that Sarah knew to be lies. His demeanor was confident, a stark contrast to the reality that Sarah had witnessed just hours earlier. As they settled into their evening routine, Sarah maintained her composed facade. She went through the motions of their nightly rituals, preparing dinner, chatting about mundane topics, and ultimately retiring to bed, all while the ache of betrayal weighed heavily on her heart. The pain in her eyes was a silent testament to the anguish she felt, even as she managed to keep her voice steady and her actions calm. Mark, unaware of the depth of Sarah's pain, continued his double life with a false sense of security. The evening had been a continuation of his carefully constructed facade, with Sarah now quietly plotting her response to the betrayal she had uncovered. The stark contrast between the reality of Mark's infidelity and the facade he maintained at home was a painful reminder of the deception that had crept into their once perfect life. In the solitude of her bedroom, Sarah reflected on the evening's events. The calm she had outwardly maintained was a fragile shell, concealing the storm of emotions that raged within her. As she lay in bed, her thoughts churned with plans and decisions about how to move forward. The revelation of Mark's affair had shattered her world, but it had also galvanized her resolve to confront the situation on her own terms. Chapter 6. The Plan. The searing pain of betrayal gradually hardened into a determined resolve within Sarah Adams. The once overwhelming anguish had transformed into a cold, calculated desire for retribution. The delicate balance of her emotions shifted as she resolved to make Mark pay for the deceit that had shattered her life. It was no longer enough for her to simply suffer in silence. She needed to act, to ensure that Mark felt the same profound hurt and humiliation she had endured. Formulating the plan. Sarah's first step was to gather concrete evidence of Mark's affair, something undeniable and irrefutable that would expose the full extent of his betrayal. She understood that to confront Mark effectively, she needed more than just suspicions and whispers. She needed hard proof that would unequivocally demonstrate his infidelity. Hiring a private investigator. After conducting thorough research, Sarah decided to hire a private investigator. She wanted someone with experience and discretion, someone who could uncover the truth without drawing attention. She chose a seasoned investigator named Robert, known for his meticulous work and ability to handle sensitive cases with tact. Sarah met Robert in a quiet cafe, her heart pounding with a mix of nervousness and anticipation. She carefully explained the situation, detailing her observations and suspicions about Mark and Emily's relationship. Robert listened attentively, his expression one of professional concern. He assured Sarah that he would handle the matter with the utmost confidentiality and diligence. Over the next few weeks, Robert began his investigation. He meticulously documented Mark's movements, tracking his interactions with Emily and gathering evidence of their secret meetings. Robert's professionalism provided Sarah with a sense of relief. She knew that she was in capable hands. Gathering the evidence, Robert's work soon began to bear fruit. He provided Sarah with detailed reports and photographic evidence of Mark and Emily together, images of them leaving restaurants, entering hotels, and engaging in intimate gestures. Each piece of evidence was a stark reminder of the betrayal that had been inflicted upon her. Sarah reviewed the evidence with a mixture of grim satisfaction and sorrow. The photographs were clear and undeniable, capturing moments of intimacy that were meant to be private. The documents detailed their frequent encounters, their shared meals, and the clandestine nature of their meetings. Sarah's sense of validation grew with each new piece of VE Chapter 7, the sabotage. With her plans set into motion, Sarah Adams embarked on a course of subtle and calculated sabotage aimed at dismantling Mark's life from within. Her desire for revenge, though initially focused on personal betrayal, now extended to his professional world. Sarah's approach was methodical and precise, reflecting her deep-seated need for Mark to experience the same feelings of loss and humiliation she had endured. Sabotaging Mark's work projects. Sarah began her campaign of sabotage with careful precision. She had always been meticulous in her work as an artist, and she applied that same attention to detail in her new venture. Her goal was to undermine Mark's professional reputation, ensuring that he faced significant repercussions for his actions. First, Sarah gathered information about Mark's current projects and key responsibilities. She learned about the clients he was working with and the internal dynamics of his firm. Armed with this knowledge, she set about creating a series of false documents and misleading emails designed to sow discord and confusion. Sarah crafted emails that appeared to come from Mark's address, but were laced with incorrect information. She sent these misleading communications to his colleagues and clients, making sure the content was just believable enough to cause issues without being immediately obvious as fraudulent. The emails contained discrepancies and errors that were subtly designed to undermine Mark's credibility. For example, she altered details in project specifications, changed deadlines, and made false claims about budget approvals. In addition to emails, Sarah created forged documents that she strategically placed in Mark's office. These documents included altered reports, incorrect data, and false internal memos that could be used to discredit him. Her aim was to create a growing sense of doubt about Mark's competence among his colleagues and superiors. As a result, Mark began to experience mounting problems at work. Deadlines were missed, projects faced unexpected setbacks, and clients expressed dissatisfaction with his performance. The once respected accountant found himself under increasing scrutiny. His colleagues began to question his decisions and reliability, and his superiors started to doubt his capabilities. The professional challenges that arose were both frustrating and damaging to Mark's reputation. Emotional withdrawal at home. Parallel to her professional sabotage, Sarah's behavior at home became increasingly detached. She withdrew emotionally from Mark, creating a stark contrast to the warm, supportive partner he had known. Her silence and aloofness were calculated, designed to maximize his sense of isolation and confusion. Sarah's withdrawal was evident in their daily interactions. She became distant, her responses to Mark's attempts at conversation terse and disinterested. When he sought her affection, she remained cold and unresponsive. The warmth that had once defined their relationship was replaced by an icy barrier that left Mark feeling unmoored. The shift in Sarah's demeanor was a calculated maneuver. She made sure that her emotional distance was noticeable without being overtly confrontational. She avoided physical contact, refrained from sharing personal thoughts, and limited her engagement in their shared activities. Her home, once a place of comfort and connection, became a cold and unwelcoming environment for Mark. Mark's growing anxiety. As the days turned into weeks, Mark's confusion and anxiety began to escalate. He struggled to understand the source of the problems at work and the sudden, unexplained shift in Sarah's behavior. The combination of professional setbacks and emotional alienation left him feeling increasingly paranoid and unsettled. Mark's attempts to address the issues at work were met with resistance and frustration. He tried to rectify the mistakes and manage the fallout, but his efforts seemed to be in vain. The more he struggled, the more he felt his professional credibility slipping away. His anxiety grew as he faced mounting pressure from his superiors and growing suspicion from his colleagues. At home, Mark's desperation for Sarah's affection became palpable. He made numerous attempts to reach out to her, seeking reassurance and comfort. However, his efforts were met with Sarah's deliberate coldness, which only heightened his sense of insecurity. He found himself grappling with feelings of loneliness and betrayal, unsure of how to address the growing chasm between them. Mark's paranoia began to take hold. He questioned whether his colleagues were plotting against him, whether his clients were dissatisfied with his work, and why Sarah had become so distant. His once confident demeanor was replaced by a constant state of unease. He felt trapped in a situation where he couldn't identify the true source of his problems or find a way to resolve them. Conclusion. Sarah's strategy of sabotage was a calculated attempt to make Mark experience a fraction of the pain and humiliation she felt. Her actions were executed with precision, reflecting a deep-seated desire for retribution. As Mark faced the consequences of her carefully orchestrated plan, Sarah remained detached and resolute, her revenge a cold, deliberate act of justice. The emotional and professional fallout from her actions left Mark grappling with a reality that had been irrevocably altered by Sarah's vengeful machinations. Chapter 8. The Financial Ruin. As Sarah Adams' campaign of revenge progressed, her next target was Mark's financial stability. With her meticulous attention to detail and her deepening resolve to make him suffer, Sarah devised a plan to cripple Mark economically. Her strategy was both ruthless and cunning, aimed at destabilizing his financial footing and exacerbating the professional turmoil he was already experiencing. Diverting funds. Sarah began by covertly transferring money from their joint accounts into her own private accounts. She understood the importance of secrecy and took great care to ensure her actions went unnoticed. Using her knowledge of their financial situation and her ability to manipulate digital transactions, Sarah executed a series of discreet transfers. Her method was calculated. She made small, incremental withdrawals that would be less likely to attract immediate attention. She chose to move the money into accounts she had opened under pseudonyms, ensuring that these were untraceable and unrelated to her own identity. Each transaction was carefully timed and executed to avoid triggering any fraud alerts or suspicious activity flags. Sarah also ensured that she covered her tracks. She erased any electronic traces of the transactions and altered bank statements to reflect plausible yet benign explanations for the missing funds. Her expertise in managing finances, coupled with her meticulous planning, allowed her to create a facade of normalcy while she systematically siphoned off money from their shared resources, increasing financial stress. As the funds began to disappear, Mark started to notice the strain on their finances. He observed that their joint accounts were dwindling and began to question the cause of the unexplained withdrawals. The mounting financial stress added to his already significant worries about his failing career and the growing strain in his relationship with Sarah. Mark's attempts to reconcile their financial situation were met with confusion. The discrepancies in their accounts didn't add up, and he found himself grappling with a growing sense of panic. Despite his efforts to track the missing money and understand the underlying issues, he was unable to uncover the true source of the problem. Sarah's covert actions ensured that there was no obvious trail leading back to her. Sabotaging the investment deal. In addition to undermining their personal finances, Sarah set her sights on a major investment deal that Mark had been working on for months. This deal was crucial for Mark's firm and was expected to secure his position and future career prospects. Sarah saw it as an opportunity to cause maximum damage. She discreetly leaked confidential information about the investment to a rival firm. This involved a careful process of acquiring sensitive details about the deal and then strategically passing this information to the competition. Sarah used anonymous channels and intermediaries to avoid direct involvement, ensuring that the leak could be traced back to her. The impact of the leaked information was swift and devastating. The rival firm, armed with insider knowledge, was able to outmaneuver Mark's firm, effectively causing the investment deal to fall through. The fallout was severe. Mark's firm suffered significant financial losses, and the failure of the deal led to a crisis of confidence among clients and stakeholders. Mark, already reeling from his professional difficulties, found himself facing severe repercussions for the failed investment. His firm's financial stability was jeopardized, and Mark was held accountable for the botched deal. The loss of the investment not only affected the firm's bottom line, but also damaged Mark's reputation and standing within the industry. Career in shambles. The cumulative effect of Sarah's sabotage was catastrophic. Mark's once promising career, characterized by upward mobility and success, now lay in ruins. He was scrutinized by his superiors, criticized by clients, and faced the humiliation of professional failure. The financial losses incurred by his firm were a significant blow, further tarnishing his credibility and eroding his professional relationships. As Mark grappled with the collapse of his career, he found himself at a loss to explain the full extent of the crisis. The financial strain, coupled with the professional setbacks, created a perfect storm of distress. His mounting anxiety and growing desperation were palpable as he struggled to piece together the fragments of his shattered career. Sarah, observing the chaos from a distance, felt a cold satisfaction. Her plan had worked. Mark was now facing the full brunt of her revenge. The financial ruin she had orchestrated added a final devastating blow to the life he had once taken for granted. Conclusion: Sarah's actions had far-reaching consequences. The careful and calculated sabotage of Mark's finances and career was a testament to her resolve and ingenuity. The damage inflicted was extensive, affecting not only Mark's professional standing, but also his personal stability. As Sarah continued to watch from the shadows, she knew that the repercussions of her revenge would be felt for a long time, a relentless reminder of the betrayal that had sparked her quest for retribution. Chapter 9. The isolation. With Mark's career and finances in shambles, Sarah Adams turned her attention to further isolating him from any remaining support. Her strategy was to dismantle the social network that had once buoyed his confidence and provided a buffer against the personal and professional turmoil he faced. Her actions were deliberate and ruthless, designed to ensure that Mark's descent into isolation and despair was as complete as possible. Cutting ties with mutual friends. Sarah began by methodically severing Mark's connections with their mutual friends. She reached out to these friends under the guise of maintaining social ties, but her conversations were carefully crafted to plant seeds of doubt about Mark's character. She painted a picture of a man who was untrustworthy, unreliable, and deeply flawed. In these interactions, Sarah subtly highlighted Mark's perceived faults and hinted at his recent failings. She avoided direct accusations, but used innuendo and half-truths to create a narrative of discontent and dishonesty. She claimed that Mark's recent behavior was indicative of deeper personal issues, framing him as a person who had become increasingly self-centered and dishonest. The effect of Sarah's manipulation was swift and devastating. Friends who had once been close to Mark began to distance themselves. Social invitations dwindled, and the camaraderie that had once defined their shared circle turned into a backdrop of whispers and judgment. The sense of betrayal and skepticism spread through their social network, further isolating Mark. Spreading rumors. To cement Mark's social ostracism, Sarah took her campaign a step further by spreading rumors about his unfaithfulness. She leveraged the information she had gathered and embellished it with fabricated details, ensuring that the rumors were both sensational and believable. Sarah carefully chose who to share these rumors with: people who were influential within their social circle, or who had a tendency to gossip. She whispered about Mark's alleged indiscretions and suggested that his professional failings were tied to his personal moral shortcomings. By framing Mark as a man who had betrayed not only his wife, but also his friends and colleagues, Sarah ensured that the rumors would have a far-reaching impact. The rumors quickly gained traction, fueled by the scandalous nature of the allegations and the credibility of Sarah's seemingly personal insights. Mark's reputation took a severe hit, and he found himself facing accusations and mistrust from those he had once considered friends. The social support that had once been a source of strength for him was now a distant memory, replaced by an atmosphere of judgment and alienation. Mark's despair. As the walls closed in around him, Mark found himself engulfed in a profound sense of isolation. The combination of professional failure, financial ruin, and social ostracism created a perfect storm of despair. His attempts to reach out for support were met with cold indifference or outright hostility. The friends he had once counted on were now avoiding him, their previously warm connections replaced with a palpable sense of alienation. Desperate to mend the fractured relationship with Sarah, Mark tried repeatedly to reach out to her. He sent heartfelt messages, made tearful pleas, and attempted to bridge the emotional chasm that had grown between them. He expressed remorse for his actions, confessing his guilt and asking for forgiveness. Despite his heartfelt attempts, Sarah remained resolutely distant. Her emotional armor was impenetrable, hardened by the betrayal she had experienced. She viewed Mark's pleas through a lens of detached judgment, her heart unchanged by his expressions of regret. Her response was marked by indifference, leaving Mark's efforts for reconciliation in vain. The spiral into despair. As Sarah watched from the sidelines, the transformation in Mark was stark. The once confident, charming man she had known was now a shadow of his former self. The relentless isolation and public humiliation had eroded his self-esteem and sense of identity. Mark's previously assured demeanor was replaced by visible signs of anxiety and depression. He became a broken shell of the person he had once been, his demeanor reflecting the cumulative weight of his professional and personal failures. His once vibrant personality was dimmed by the relentless pressures and the crushing sense of abandonment. The despair he experienced was palpable, a tangible manifestation of the emotional and social isolation that Sarah had meticulously orchestrated. Conclusion. Sarah's efforts to isolate Mark were a calculated and devastating component of her revenge. By dismantling his social support network and spreading damaging rumors, she ensured that his descent into despair was both profound and public. As Mark faced the consequences of his actions and the relentless isolation engineered by Sarah, he was left to confront a reality defined by loss and loneliness. Sarah's cold satisfaction in watching Mark's unraveling was a testament to the depth of her resolve and the effectiveness of her calculated retribution. Chapter 10. The Disappearance. The time had come for Sarah Adams to execute her final and most definitive move. After months of meticulously dismantling Mark's life, her plan reached its climax. She had orchestrated every detail with precision, ensuring that her departure would leave a lasting impact. The final act of her revenge was about to unfold, leaving Mark to face the full extent of his actions and their consequences. Preparation for departure. Sarah knew that the impact of her disappearance needed to be as profound as the actions leading up to it. She chose a night when Mark was away on a business trip, ensuring that her departure would be abrupt and shocking. With the house to herself, Sarah began her preparations in earnest. She meticulously packed her belongings, selecting only the essentials and leaving behind a carefully curated selection of personal items that would not immediately arouse suspicion. Her aim was to leave just enough to suggest that she had been there recently, but was now irrevocably gone. She packed her suitcase with a sense of finality, making sure that everything she took with her was accounted for and that there was no sign of haste or disorder. Leaving the letter. The letter was the centerpiece of Sarah's final act. It was written with a deliberate clarity and an emotional weight that she hoped would convey the depth of her pain and the finality of her departure. She composed the letter with a calm resolve, ensuring that it was both a testament to her hurt and a clear statement of her intentions. In the letter, Sarah detailed the extent of Mark's infidelity and the profound impact it had on her life. She recounted the emotional turmoil she had endured, the betrayal she had felt, and the lengths she had gone to in order to address the situation. The letter was unflinchingly honest, laying bare the hurt she had experienced and the reasons for her decision to leave. Sarah made it clear that she would never return. The letter was not only a statement of her feelings, but also a final declaration of her decision to sever all ties. It was a written testament to the irreversible nature of her departure, a document that would leave no room for doubt or misunderstanding. The departure, with everything in place, Sarah left the house quietly. She made sure that no evidence of her departure was left behind, taking care to lock the doors and ensure that her absence was as thorough as her presence had been. She took a final, lingering look at the home that had been the backdrop of her life with Mark, a mix of sadness and resolve etched on her face. She departed with a sense of cold satisfaction, knowing that her final act would leave Mark to grapple with the full consequences of his actions. Her departure was calculated to maximize the emotional impact, ensuring that Mark would return to find himself utterly alone and confronted with the reality of her absence. Mark's devastation. When Mark returned home from his business trip, he was greeted by an eerie silence. The once familiar comfort of his home was now a stark, empty space. The realization of Sarah's absence hit him with an overwhelming force as he noticed the emptiness of the house. As he searched through the rooms, his heart sank with each passing moment. The reality of Sarah's departure became inescapably clear when he discovered the letter she had left behind. The letter was placed on the kitchen counter, its presence both a final message and a cruel reminder of the betrayal that had led to this point. Mark picked up the letter with trembling hands, his eyes scanning the words that laid bare the depth of Sarah's pain and the reasons for her departure. He read the letter over and over, each reading driving the point home with crushing clarity. The words echoed in his mind, a relentless reminder of his own failings and the profound impact of his actions. The weight of his guilt was palpable. Mark felt an overwhelming sense of remorse and desperation, knowing that he had lost the woman he loved and had driven her to a point of no return. He tried to reach out to Sarah, sending frantic messages and making desperate phone calls, but his efforts were met with silence. She had vanished completely, leaving no trace of her whereabouts. The finality Mark's attempts to contact Sarah only deepened his sense of despair. The more he tried to reach her, the more apparent it became that she was truly gone. The finality of her departure was underscored by the silence that followed her disappearance, a silence that was a stark contrast to the noise of his inner turmoil. As he sat alone in the empty house, Mark was left to confront the full impact of Sarah's departure. The house, once filled with the promise of a shared future, was now a stark reminder of his mistakes and the irrevocable damage they had caused. The reality of his situation sank in as he grappled with the emotional fallout and the profound sense of loss that came with Sarah's disappearance. Conclusion. Sarah's final act of disappearance was the ultimate expression of her revenge, a calculated move designed to leave Mark with a profound sense of isolation and regret. Her departure, marked by the letter detailing his betrayal, ensured that Mark was left to face the consequences of his actions alone. As he came to terms with the emptiness of his life and the finality of Sarah's absence, Mark was forced to confront the depth of his mistakes and the irreparable damage caused by his infidelity. Chapter 11. The Aftermath. As Sarah Adams vanished from Mark's life, the remnants of his once thriving existence began to crumble. The impact of her departure and the personal betrayals he had committed resulted in a cascading series of failures that left him shattered and adrift. Mark's downfall. Mark's life, already precarious from the financial and professional sabotage Sarah had meticulously orchestrated, continued to deteriorate. His career, once promising, had been reduced to ashes. The investment deal that had fallen through had led to a series of professional setbacks, and his inability to recover from the financial losses meant that he was eventually terminated from his job. The prestige and security he had once enjoyed were replaced by uncertainty and unemployment. The fallout extended beyond his career. The social circle that had once been a source of support and camaraderie now viewed him with disdain, thanks to the rumors Sarah had spread. Friends who had once celebrated his successes now avoided him, their judgments hardened by the revelations of his infidelity and the subsequent rumors. The isolation he felt was a stark contrast to the vibrant social life he had once enjoyed. Financially, Mark was in disarray. The money Sarah had siphoned off left him struggling to cover basic expenses, adding to his sense of helplessness and despair. The financial instability compounded his personal and professional struggles, leaving him with a profound sense of defeat. Emotional trauma and mental health, haunted by memories of Sarah and the love they once shared, Mark found himself grappling with deep emotional trauma. The sense of loss and betrayal was overwhelming, and the weight of his actions and their consequences became a constant burden. His mental health began to deteriorate under the strain, manifesting as severe depression and anxiety. Mark's attempts to cope with his anguish were inadequate. He found himself unable to escape the pervasive sense of guilt and regret that plagued his every waking moment. The emotional scars from his failed marriage and the subsequent fallout became a relentless torment, exacerbating his mental health issues. Seeking help, desperate for relief, and unable to manage his deteriorating mental state on his own, Mark made the decision to check himself into a sanatorium. The sanatorium was a place designed for intensive mental health care, providing a structured environment where he could receive treatment and support for his depression and anxiety. At the sanatorium, Mark was subjected to a rigorous regimen of therapy and medication aimed at addressing his mental health issues. The days were filled with counseling sessions, group therapies, and individual reflection. The structured environment offered him a temporary escape from the chaos of his former life and provided a semblance of order amidst his internal turmoil. Reflections and recovery. The sanatorium became a refuge for Mark, a place where he could confront his past and begin the slow process of healing. He spent countless hours reflecting on his mistakes, the pain he had caused Sarah, and the choices that had led to his downfall. The solitude and the focus on his mental health allowed him to begin understanding the depth of his emotional wounds and the responsibility he bore for his actions. Mark's recovery was gradual and fraught with challenges. He faced the harsh reality of his past decisions and the lasting impact they had on his life. The process of rebuilding his mental and emotional well-being was arduous, marked by moments of despair and small victories. Chapter 12. A New Beginning. Meanwhile, Sarah embarked on a new chapter in her life. Far removed from the ruins of her past marriage, she relocated to a different city, seeking a fresh start, away from the memories and pain associated with Mark. Pursuing her passion, Sarah threw herself into her work as an artist, channeling her pain and anger into her creativity. The process of creating art became both a therapeutic outlet and a source of personal fulfillment. Her gallery, which had been a symbol of her artistic aspirations, began to flourish once again. Her work, infused with the emotional intensity of her experiences, resonated with audiences and brought her recognition and success. The act of immersing herself in her art provided Sarah with a sense of purpose and renewal. She found solace in her creative expression, using it as a means to heal and rebuild her life. The scars of her past remained, but they became a part of her narrative rather than defining her future. Rebuilding trust and relationships in time, Sarah began to form new friendships and relationships. Her journey of self-discovery and recovery allowed her to open up to new connections, though she remained cautious. She approached new relationships with a guarded optimism, aware of the lessons learned from her past, but determined not to let them inhibit her ability to trust and connect with others. Sarah's willingness to move forward and embrace new experiences was a testament to her resilience. She balanced her newfound independence with a growing sense of hope for the future. Her personal growth and professional success became a symbol of her ability to overcome adversity and create a fulfilling life on her own terms. Chapter 13. The Epilogue. As the years passed, Mark and Sarah's lives continued along separate paths, marked by the profound changes wrought by their shared history. Mark's redemption. Mark spent years at the sanatorium, gradually piecing together a new sense of purpose. His experiences of trauma and recovery led him to dedicate his life to helping others who had faced similar struggles. He found meaning in supporting those who were dealing with emotional and mental health issues, using his own experiences to guide and inspire others. While Mark could never fully escape the memories of his past, he learned to live with them and use them as a source of empathy and understanding. His work with others became a form of redemption, allowing him to find a measure of peace through acts of service and support. Sarah's new life. For Sarah, the decision to move forward was a deliberate and empowered choice. She embraced her new life with a sense of strength and purpose. Her artistic success and personal growth were reflections of her resilience and determination. Though the scars of her past remained, they became a part of her story rather than a barrier to her happiness. Sarah's journey was one of self-discovery and renewal. She learned to trust again, to form meaningful connections, and to find joy in her accomplishments. Her life became a testament to the power of healing and the importance of moving forward despite past pain. The legacy of their story, the story of Mark and Sarah, became a cautionary tale about the fragility of trust and the destructive nature of betrayal. Their once perfect relationship had been marred by infidelity and deception, leading to a devastating collapse. However, their individual journeys also highlighted the resilience of the human spirit and the capacity for personal growth and redemption. Though their paths never crossed again, the legacy of their story lived on as a reminder of the consequences of betrayal and the possibility of overcoming even the deepest wounds. Mark and Sarah's lives continued on separate trajectories, each finding a measure of peace and purpose in their own ways. Their story served as both a warning and an inspiration, illustrating the profound impact of personal choices and the enduring strength of the human spirit.